Let's talk to God. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk to God. Woo!
All right, I know you all can see me. I'm trying to make sure that there we go. There we go. Good evening, everybody. This is Cutler on the Let's Talk to Cutler Virtual Book Club, the Let's Talk to Cutler YouTube platform, and the Let's Talk to Cutler. Let's spend these 1,800 seconds together on this Tuesday. It is the 8th of April, and I'm so thankful that you all decided to allow me to come into your space. I don't ever take that for granted. Thank you all so very much for that. I hope that you all had a great weekend and that you are enjoying this weather. I hope the weather is agreeable, first of all. And secondly, I hope that you are enjoying it wherever you are. And I hope that you are practicing gratitude and thankfulness. If this is your first time, let me just make sure you all understand that this platform is about inspiration, it's about motivation, it's about challenging ourselves to show up as the best version that we can, even in the worst of situations. Our goal is to always show up our best selves. That's certainly my goal. Even this evening, you probably hear that I sound like I'm a bit congested. Let me just say, I sound worse than I feel. Pollen really gets the best of me, and sometimes it does a number on my sinuses, but I'm really, really fine. And so thank you all again for just sharing this space with me. I'll shout out the LTTC VIPs in just a moment. But do me a favor, tell someone, come on and let's talk to color. This evening, I want to talk about the art of silence. I woke up this morning and I read something and it really just struck a responsive chord. So I want to talk about the art of silence, the benefits of being silenced, why it is okay to sometimes hold your peace, why you don't have to say everything that comes to your mind, why some people say whatever comes up comes out, why we don't have to be that way. And so I'll talk about that in just a moment. But if you have not already done so, please go ahead and subscribe. After you subscribe, click on the notification bell. I'm not sure where the notification bell is on your particular device, whether it's down there, up there, over there, wherever it is. Click on the notification bell so that you can be notified whenever I've gone live or whenever I have uploaded new content. Now, in terms of the LTTC VIPs, the people who showed up first, from my perspective, there are other people in the chat. I don't see you, other people logged in, but I don't see you in the chat just yet. So come on in and say hello and good evening to everybody. But from my vantage point, the VIPs this evening are Annie Cutler, Linda Martin, and Paula D. It is so good to see all of you. As a matter of fact, here I'm going to do something. Let's see. There's Annie Cutler who says, Linda Martin, who says, good evening, everyone. And then there is Paula D, who says hello to everybody. All right, so I did a shout out. First time I did that kind of shout out. All right, let's just keep on going here. But in terms of this evening's conversation, I woke up and I was reading something that talked about the importance of keeping silent, saying, just reminding me that you don't always have to say what comes to mind. There are some places and in some situations where you should just stay silent, no matter what's going on. There are some places where it just pays to stay silent. I think a lot of times we show up in situations and we realize, okay, you know what? There are some people who just really talk more than they listen. And I wonder, how much talking do we tend to do on an average day? And then kind of juxtapose or put that next to how much listening do we do? I mean, not just casual listening or eavesdropping, but how much listening do we do where we're really focusing on what the other person has to say? How much respect and courtesy are we giving the people who are talking to us? So instead of planning out these wonderful things while people are talking and while trying to finish what you want to get out, how much listening are we actually doing? What I read was that a lot of people, and tell me if you all agree with this, or if you know people like this, you don't have to put any names, but a lot of times people will treat conversations like it's a competition, like it's a competitive sport to see who says the most, who's going to be most witty, who is going to be the smartest, who's going to be more clever, who's going to be more persuasive in what they have to say, who talks the loudest, who talks the longest. Have you ever noticed that there are some people who engage in conversations and the next thing you know, it just feels like this competitive sport? Now, I know from time to time, we all might fall into that. We might fall into that trap of just, realizing that every time somebody else says something, you need to say something, and just that kind of thing. And what do? We end up interrupting people. We end up trying to insist that we be heard. We try to come up with clever things to say. And we do that because the bottom line is we're trying to support our point of view. We're trying to make sure that we sometimes show that we have this superior knowledge, or I know a little bit more. This is my wheelhouse. This is my sweet spot. I got this. This is what I know. But when we actually stop to think about that, is that a perspective that we should have when it comes to conversation? Go on and tell people, come on, let's talk to Cutler, because we're going to talk about the art of silence. We're going to talk about communicating and talking with our friends and family members, and we're going to talk about this. Because as I was reading this morning, I came across something that says the person who speaks least will sometimes benefit the most. The person who speaks least will sometimes benefit the most, and the person who speaks the most benefits the least, because the person who speaks the most has not had a chance to receive, so they don't necessarily benefit the most. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, that thing just resonated with me, you all. So I was thinking, wow, what approach then should we take when it comes to conversations, when it comes to talking? And what I realized is that the person who is always talking is the one who's just giving away information. It's just giving away information, and it's not the one who's getting the information. And a lot of times, some people end up in these competitive conversations, and they're just giving away and giving away information. Sometimes people tell more than they intended to tell, and literally, that is called talking too much. Meanwhile, the person who's listening is receiving everything, but the one who's doing all the talking, sometimes they just talk too much. Have you ever been in a situation, have you know people in a situation who, after they talk and talk and talk, after the conversation, they realize, you know what, I shouldn't have said that, or I talked too much, or I didn't intend to say that, I didn't mean to say that. That's why we have to be so careful. That it really is an art to silence, because when you realize how much you're talking, you're very careful, so that way you don't reveal anything that you'll later regret. Because the truth of the matter is, if you're talking a whole lot and you say something and you share something, you can't get it back. It's like once you ring the bell, you can't unring it. You can't make people unhear what they've already heard. And that was a lesson in my practicing the art of communication. I had to understand, I had to realize, Cutler, you don't get it back once you put it out there. Once you express your thought, you can't say, I should have kept that to myself, because you didn't. It's out there. But the less you say, the smaller chances you're going to have at sharing information that you'll later wish you didn't share. I'm just trying to help us formulate our thoughts while we're speaking, and understand that there really is an art. As an educator, when my students would ask me things, a lot of times we say, there is no dumb question. I'm not going to go down that road to say that sometimes there can be questions that seem dumb. Excuse me for just a moment. Excuse me. But I think Abraham Lincoln said it best. He said, it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak out loud and remove all doubt. So I'm suggesting that this art of silence will help you maintain some kind of decorum about you. And you don't look, I don't want to use the word dumb, but You don't look unsure about yourself, or you don't put yourself in a negative light, because for any of us, it sometimes just speak thoughtlessly without having all the information, because we get into that competitive sport of talking. And so then we just mindless talking, not even having all the information. It makes you look not so intelligent, and it minimizes the chances of people listening to what you have to say when you just running off. And so I think we should honor the art of silence sometimes. Just honor the art of silence. And it helps us, because that way you don't end up repeating yourself. Have you ever heard somebody, they start talking and then they start repeating themselves because they've given away all the information, all the material that they had to share, they've already shared it. It's like having this limited supply of knowledge, this limited supply of information, this limited supply of jokes that you can tell, this limited supply of anecdotes that you can use to fill in the blanks, these limited pearls of wisdom or nuggets. They are limited. And sometimes when you start talking over and over and over, you end up saying the same things, you end up repeating yourself, and people don't want to hear you. Stories and conversations have the greatest impact when people feel like they're hearing them for the first time. So sometimes it's important to be silent and save your words for the right moment, because that way you give your words power. You're strategic about not only what you say, but how you say, and more importantly, when you say it. And another reason that, and let's just turn the table for just a moment. I hope I'm helping somebody, you all, because there really is an art to silence. There's a benefit to silence a lot of times. When you are silent, it shows that you are listening, and the people that you are listening to feel understood. They feel valued. They feel cared about. Do you not know that when you are listening, you are really giving someone a gift? You are giving them the gift of validation, the gift of affirmation, the gift of being respected, the gift of courtesy, the gift of letting them know that they matter. People go through life wishing to be heard, wishing to be acknowledged. So when you stop talking and you listen to them, you are giving them a valuable affirmation. Have you ever thought about that? I hadn't. I'm telling you, when I read that thing this morning, it just blew my mind that my silence and my listening is giving someone the gift of value, the gift of affirmation. It makes people feel understood when you listen. It makes them feel validated when you listen. It helps to build relationship when you stop talking and listen. I just had not thought of that. It just had not crossed my mind. And then when you're silent, you gain insightful information. You gain a whole lot of information just by listening. And what happens is that if you don't talk as much, when you do talk, people will listen. I sat in a meeting I'm always in meetings, but I remember I started going to this one meeting, and I would not, I purposefully, I would listen, because I was new to that series of meetings. And I wanted to make sure that if I spoke, it was from a place of having knowledge, a place of having information, a place of understanding. And so I sat there in silence for several meetings. And then one day I said something, and one of my colleagues who was attending said, we need to hear your voice more often. Because when you are silent and you finally do speak, people will listen. If you're the person who's constantly sharing your opinion, even unsolicited, when people didn't ask you for it, nobody's going to seek them out, or the number of people who start seeking your opinion is going to diminish. But if you only say what you're thinking on occasion, or just to make a point one time instead of over and over and over, then the impact of your words are going to carry more weight. I'm trying to help us with this art of silence. I'm not suggesting that you keep your opinions to yourself. What I'm suggesting is that you share them when it's appropriate. Because there are times some people around you do need to know what you're thinking, particularly if you're in a leadership role or if you're in a role that has any kind of influence. People do need to know what you're thinking. But what I'm suggesting is that we need to spend more time listening. So that way, when you start speaking, then you're understood and people can bond with you. I hope that's helping us. So this other thing that I saw, it just blew my mind. Speaking of this whole art of silence, this thing that I saw on social media, it talked about the 10 places that you should stay silent at all costs. And you all, let me know if any of this resonates with you. When should you be silent? Be silent if you don't know the full story. There are times when people just talk and talk and talk. They don't have all the details. They don't have half the details. I don't know if they have a quarter of the details, but there are times when people just start talking because they get in this competitive sport of just wanting to be heard and wanting to be acknowledged. And they just start talking and it's just disjointed, disconnected, inaccurate, and just sometimes it's blatantly wrong. Be silent if you don't know the full story, if you don't have all the details. This is when you go and get people tell me, come on, let's talk to Cutler. Because now this is what challenges us. I talk about inspiration and motivation, but let's talk about what really challenges us. When you don't know the full story, it helps to be silent. It also helps to be silent if you feel that you can't control your emotions. If you think that you're going to get angry and start yelling and screaming and just going off on people, be silent. If you cannot control your emotions, be silent. And right on the heels of that, if you're angry, one I tell people when they are at an extreme emotion, whether it's extreme to the left or to the right, let's learn how to be silent. Don't make decisions and don't make conversation. Particularly if you're in the heat of anger, just be silent. Learn how to hold your peace and or walk away. Because if you're not silent, what can happen is that when you're not silent, your words can destroy friendships and relationships. Be silent. Be silent in situations where your words can destroy these wonderful long-term relationships and long-term friendships. It can happen. I've seen instances where friendships and relationships crumbled because someone did not practice. I'm not going to say they didn't know how to, but they did not practice the art of holding their peace. Oh, I'm just going to say this. If you're my friend, you ought to be able to receive what I have to say. No, not if your words are coming to hurt me. Not if your words are coming to destroy me or to break me down rather than build me up. Be silent because words can sometimes break and destroy long-term friendships and relationships. The art of silence, you all. Sometimes people just say, oh, I have something to say and they're going to hear me. They're going to know what's on my mind. That's not always the best decision. And sometimes it's not even knowing the full story. Sometimes it's just a matter of lacking knowledge. Have you heard some people have you ever encountered some people who know something about everything? Nobody knows something about everything. Some people just jump right in and they just start talking. But one of the things that I read in that post today was be silent if you're unsure about the topic. If you lack knowledge, it may not be your area of expertise. You don't know everything about everything. I certainly don't. And I've never met anybody who knows everything about everything. That's a great place to practice silence. And then one of the things that keeps me operating the way I do is being concerned about the impact of my words. I am so concerned about the impact of my words, and I stay away from people who don't care about the impact of your words. And I'm not saying you have to, you have to vet your words through some people. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm careful about the impact that my words will have on people. And so from that vantage point, I make sure that sometimes I just practice the art of silence. And that's a good thing to do, particularly when people are sharing with you their struggles and their heartaches and their concerns and their vulnerabilities. Sometimes when you don't know what to say, be silent. Because a person may have worked up enough nerves to share with you their struggles, to tell you what's on their heart, what's on their mind, what's in their soul, to tell you about their proclivities, to tell you about their vulnerabilities. Sometimes it is an art to be silent. Just silence. And I'm not talking about awkward silence, but just learn to listen. There are some people, I don't know if it is an excited utterance, I don't know what happens, but there's some people who they just can't seem to talk without yelling. Have you all ever met people like that? Excuse me. Excuse me. Have you ever met people who just don't seem to be able to talk without yelling? And you want to say, can you turn your volume down just a little bit? But if that's you are, and you hear yourself, and if you're not sure, ask people, do I yell when I talk? If you can't talk without yelling, be silent. And sometimes you feel like yelling when you're angry. Be silent. You feel like yelling when you can't control your emotions. Be silent. If you can't talk without yelling, be silent, because you don't necessarily know what kind of emotion that is going to invoke in the person who's listening, or what kind it's going to evoke in the person who's listening. So if you can't talk without yelling, just be silent. That's why I was saying I'm concerned about the impact that my words will have on people, not just what I say, but when I say it and how I say it. I'm concerned about all of that. I want to make sure that my words don't tear down relationships, that they don't destroy bonds that have been built, it doesn't break down bridges that have been constructed. So one of the things when it comes to me, I want to make sure that I stay silent. If my words can save a relationship, if they can save a friendship, if my silence can save a friendship, if they can save a relationship, if they can save a bond, if they can save a bridge that has been built, I'm going to be silent. I don't care that my opinion has been solicited. Sometimes just because people ask you to speak, you don't have to speak. Sometimes because people ask you a question, every question does not merit an answer. Sometimes silence is an answer. So if I feel that my words may potentially create something that might cause a relationship to crumble, I'm going to keep silent. It's an art. Because maybe I'm wrestling on the inside. One part of me says, "Oh, you need to say this. You need to be heard. You need to speak truth." Well, listen. When I count it all up, and I reckon the outcome. If my silence can save bonds and bridges and relationships and friendships, that's what you're going to get. My silence. There's sometimes we need to practice the art of silence, you all. One of the things that I read about being silent. Let me see if I can remember. I can't necessarily remember, but it says, "Be silent if speaking will only serve to boost your." You all listen to this. Be silent if speaking will only serve to boost your ego or seek validation. If you're only talking to build your ego and to pump up your arrogance, or to elevate your conceit, or to get validation, if you're talking just for those reasons, those very self-serving reasons, be silent. Just be tactful, be diplomatic, and be silent. Because guess what? Your validation comes by virtue of the fact that you're here. Sometimes you're looking for extra affirmation, but sometimes people hold conversations simply for ego. I don't want to pull back on some of my Southern sayings and things that I've heard, but this word comes from the 70s when people were ego tripping. Have you heard people who just really, they just want to pump themselves up? And so they keep talking just because they want to pump themselves up. It's best to be silent in moments like that. I hope this is helping somebody. And even if it's not you, maybe you know someone that this fits. So just take it and share it with them and suggest that they come and catch the replay. Another thing, you all, be silent if your words can betray someone else's trust. If somebody is trusting you, they've said, hey, I'm going to share this with you. Please don't share with anybody else. And you say to yourself, you know what? I got that one person that I want to share this with. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't betray people's trust, because one of the things that can happen is if you betray their trust, understand that somebody will betray yours. And while you just mention it to one person, that one person could potentially, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that one person could potentially share it with a one person that he or she has. And then the next thing you know, a person's trust has been betrayed and relationship has now been made a little shaky. There are several times when we just need to be silent. At all costs, there's sometimes when you just need to be silent. Even if you have to go through that inward fight within yourself and say, you know what, let me get myself together. I don't have to say this. And when you wrestle with whether or not you should speak or you should hold your peace, it is easier to hold your peace because if you speak, you can't take that back. You don't get that back. You don't get back the impact that your words had on somebody else. You don't get that back. Let's practice. Let's learn to practice the art of silence. I know I may not be here the full 1800 seconds, but I thought that this may be helpful. And I know some of you, you're not over in the chat yet, but you're online and you're listening. So thank you all. Please go and share this with somebody. Let's do what we've been doing. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Stay safe, stay sane. Know that from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. Let's encourage each other and ourselves to learn how to practice. I'm not even saying master, but let's learn how to practice the art of silence. Silence will sometimes build a relationship better than talking. Go and tell somebody, come on, let's talk to Cutler. I'll see you the next time I see you, which will be next Tuesday, the 15th, tax day. Get your taxes done. If you haven't, let me run out of here. I'll talk to you all later. Good night.